Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Ocean Expert Exchange. Scientists in every Florida school and ANGARI Foundation are proud to be partnering again this fall to continue to bring you this series. In this series, we dive into all things marine science and technology to share what's happening in the field. Today, we will be talking with Casey Sapp about pioneering underwater camera systems, who we'll introduce to you very shortly. SAF's The Scientists in Every Florida School program is a free program housed within the Thompson Earth Systems at the University of Florida. The SAF's program connects and builds long-term partnerships between teachers and scientists in order to bring current scientific research and big data into classrooms around the state of Florida and beyond. ANGARI Foundation is a nonprofit headquartered in West Palm Beach, Florida. The foundation supports and promotes marine science research and education, and many of the foundation's primary initiatives involve its 65-foot research vessel, the RV ANGARI. In case you missed it earlier in the event here, we will be reminding you to leave questions for the scientists by typing them in the chat box. And we've also provided a survey at the end of today's presentation for a chance at some really cool swag. So make sure that you take part in that. At this time, we'd like to introduce to you Casey Sapp. Casey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Hey, everybody. Good to meet you. Good to be here. I think I have to share my screen. Let's see. And how's that? Can everyone see?
Looks good.
Looks good. It's good to be here. I am in St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Casey Sapp. I work in the ocean for a living, and I wanted to share a little bit about that today. So my friends at ANGARI and the University of Florida, where I went to school, we decided that we would tell you a little bit of what it takes to build camera systems and the types of careers that you can have underwater. And there are many different ways to work in the water. You don't have to be a sailor or be in the Navy or be a marine biologist. There's many other things, many other ways to be able to be in the ocean, not just for fun, but as a profession. So these are some of the camera systems that I've built, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. They're different. They're not just single cameras maybe that you're used to seeing, but they're 360. They're VR. And maybe I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So for example, in this video on YouTube, you can look around. You can look up, you can look down. And it allows you to see in all directions. And so that's me holding the camera. And so here we are being able to look not just on YouTube, but in a virtual reality headset. Those are the types of cameras that I build. So let me get back to the presentation. I think you can see me on the screen talking while I'm on video, but I just wanted to give you a quick background. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I love the water. I've been in the ocean swimming and playing water polo and scuba diving since I was in middle school, and I grew up in Orlando, Florida. Went to Winter Springs High School, if any of you are near there. And my favorite game is Settlers of Catan. If you haven't tried it, you should. So my career started, my college career started at University of Florida. And before that time, I only thought that banking and finance and law were the careers that were available to me. And I didn't find those very interesting. I knew that they would be useful, and I knew that there's a lot of really amazing and smart people that do them. But I wanted to be out of an office, and I wanted to be traveling. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like at the time. So there are a lot of twists and turns to my career. But I initially started at a bank outside of when I graduated college, and then I moved to China. I learned the language, and I worked in as an English teacher and working for a few other small businesses, and that brought me into technology, and I got into education technology for a while. And to make a very long story short, I started diving and shooting with cameras underwater, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be the very best at it. And I find this really interesting. So I didn't necessarily think I could make money off of it, but over time, this has become my profession and career. And so the things that I build have many different forms. I build these camera systems with many different lenses. They can go to the bottom of the ocean. They can be on submarines. They can be, I can be holding them just like you saw in that video. And so my profession is maybe part camera inventor and designer. It's part film producer, part camera operator, and just overall understanding film production. And I see that underwater is spelled wrong there. My apologies. So my partner and I, we build a number of different camera systems, and what we do is we like to once again see in 360, and they can be large and small. They can be many different colors, and they do three specific things. Now this is getting a little bit technical, but we'll give it a try. So the first thing is, in each of these categories, we can see in 360 degrees. We can see all around us. The first way we shoot is in mono, and that means monoscopic. It means 2D. It's just like watching TV at home, but in full 360. And then stereo. Stereo means stereoscopic. It's as if you were at maybe Disney World and you had 3D glasses on and you saw depth in the TV screen. Maybe Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at Epcot, or maybe you've gone and seen a movie like Avatar in the theater. Those are stereoscopic experiences or 3D experiences. And then the last is called volumetric. That's the hardest one to understand, but it literally means a video which you can walk around in. You can actually move from side to side, and while the video and while the experience is playing, you can move around in it, not just your head, but your entire body. So we call the things where you move just your head 3 degrees of freedom, and that means essentially moving your head left and right, up and down, or side to side. Those are the 3 degrees. And then we have 6 degrees of freedom. And 6 degrees is actually being able to move your entire body. So I know that's a technical term. And so some of the videos, which I'll share with you in a second, have been shot for Google and Discovery, National Geographic. If you've seen an underwater 360 video before, my partner and I have probably made the camera system, or we've shot it ourselves. And maybe this is your first time ever seeing something like that, but we're pretty proud of just this very, very specific part of filming, which is underwater and multi-camera 360. So I've been asked to quickly tell you about what our process is. How do we go about building these cameras, coming up with them from scratch? And the first thing we do is we think about requirements. So we want it to go underwater. We don't want it to leak. Maybe we want to see what the cameras see. Or maybe it needs to be a certain size. And then we go into what's called CAD, computer-aided design. And there are software programs which many of you will probably have to use in your lifetime if you go the engineering route or something technical. And you build a camera virtually. You build it using the computer, and you can do all the tests. You can figure out how much it weighs, if it's going to leak, what parts you need to use. And you build this, and before you ever do anything physical, you want it to look as realistic as possible, so that when you actually use material that costs money, it looks exactly the way you thought it was going to look. So designing is an iterative process. We go back to the drawing board. It takes many weeks or months, sometimes years. And then we machine it. We take aluminum, titanium, maybe plastic, and we put them into these machines, and they create, and we take these big blocks of aluminum, for example, and after the machining is done, you can see in the bottom right-hand picture, the part of the end product. It hasn't been colored yet. We haven't put any type of paint on it, what we call anodization. And after the machining, we assemble it and put it in the water. And we do a number of tests. And this is the hardest part, because for the number one thing we say is progress, not perfection. So we're not trying to be perfect, because it's impossible to be perfect. There's always things which we want to improve on. There's things that if we could have done it again, we would do it differently. But the goal is that, does it work for the specific application we built it for? Is the image clear? Does it leak? Can we move it around? Does it press record does it record when we press the button? And so we do a number of different tests, and then they go out into the ocean. They shoot these magical films, which we've done in all over the world. So getting back to these videos, for example, I'll just give you a few stories. This was shot in Bimini, Bahamas, and with hammerheads. And you can see how the shark was trying to bite the camera at the time. That was quite an interesting experience. This was shot in what's called Socorro Island off of Mexico. And we wanted to capture manta rays. So you can see this manta ray coming up from the deep. And a manta ray is like a stingray, but it's bigger, and we call them ocean angels. They're just very delicate, beautiful creatures that aren't harmful in any way, and they're quite fun to be in the water with. And they can get very, very, very large. And so there was a few of them in Socorro Island, which we went and filmed. And then in this last example, we went to Indonesia, and we wanted to capture this very remote group of people who are fishermen, and they fish for a living. Everything that they do comes out of the ocean. They don't have running water, they don't have air conditioning, and we wanted to explore and understand these people. And this person, every day he goes out and captures fish with his spear gun, and you can see him doing that right now. So there's all kinds of stories that we tell in this immersive environment. And so the last thing I wanted to share is, this is maybe the most technical slide of all, but it's how do we capture this footage? How do we produce a film? For those of you, some of these words may be new to you for the first time, but these are the steps which it takes to move from capturing with one of our 360 cameras to producing the film. So the first thing you do is capture it. Then you take the data off the camera, and then you what's called log the files. So for example, if there's a shot that you really like, you set it aside, and then you stitch the cameras together. There's a special software that actually makes all of these different cameras look like a single image. We edit the story, and we put sound into it, and then maybe we'll fix some of the stitching, which we call fine stitching, and then we conform it, meaning we turn it into the file which YouTube recognizes or Facebook recognizes, and we color it, and then we do what's called exporting and put it up on Facebook or YouTube, or into a dome theater. That's also very common. And here are some of the software that we use. If I would definitely encourage any of you who are interested in film of any kind to explore these pieces of software. There is Autodesk for CAD, like I was telling you about, but DaVinci Resolve does color grading and editing. So does Adobe. And then Nuke does something called visual effects. And that's where you create all these CG scenes with explosions or other things which look real, but they aren't. That all happens in Nuke. And people have careers just off of working on these single pieces of software. That's all they'll do. And they can make really good money and work anywhere in the world. So the earlier you start, the more opportunities you have, I promise. The last thing I wanted to share was with ANGARI. ANGARI and I, we went to the Bahamas to create a 3D model of a shark. It's not film, it's actually capturing the volume. So you can do things like 3D print it. So you can see at the bottom center, we took the volume of this shark, which we captured with many different cameras. You can see on the bottom left. And through that volume, we're able to analyze it, understand the shark more, understand his movement, and then do cool, fun things like 3D printing. That was a first of its kind project. It was very groundbreaking. And so I'm very, very proud to work with ANGARI and the mission that they have to just educate people on the ocean. So if any of you have questions, if there's anything I can do to help or support, if you would like to see any more of these videos or just follow along with my travels and my journey, you can reach me through any social media if you have it. And that's it. I will turn it back over.
Casey, thanks so much for sharing your story. I'm really jealous of some of those really unique experiences you have truly diving into our natural world. If any of our attendees have any questions for Casey, please write them in the chat box and I'll ask them on your behalf. As our attendees are brainstorming their own questions, I have one for you. I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about the moment that you realized, like, I can do this for a living. Like, this is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing.
Whew. Well, the first time I did underwater 360 filming for fun, and then someone paid me to do it. And then when I realized that someone would pay me to do it, that's when I said, I can do this the rest of my life. So being able to move it from a hobby to a profession really just means that someone's willing to pay you for your time and your services. And as soon as I realized that if I got a little bit better, maybe made my own cameras, help people, with their ideas, then all of a sudden I was getting paid to do this. And it's not just with Hollywood and film production companies, it's also with the military and the Navy and ocean exploration companies that are just purely scientific. So, or even fish farming. Fish farming has a lot of use cases for 360-degree cameras. So I had no idea any of this was available, but when I started getting paid, that's when I decided this was for me.
That's awesome. I love that. So earlier you spoke about the 3 degrees of freedom versus 6 degrees of freedom. And Anne-Marie is wondering, are you mostly responsible for volumetric? Is that what you developed, that type of camera?
So volumetric means very different things. It's a very different process underwater and above water. And above water, there's volumetric video, there's volumetric scenes, and there's things which are static and dynamic. Underwater, there's really no precedence with anything that is video-like. So a static scene like a cave or a seabed, that there's something which recreates a volumetric 3D model through photogrammetry, and that's a static scene. I'm not the only one who's doing that. That's a very mature process, and there's people all over the world that do underwater photogrammetry. underwater volumetric video, then I would, as far as I know, I'm the only guy who's developing technology and pushing the boundary forward to commercialize it. So that's so there's a difference between photogrammetry and videogrammetry.
Thank you. Our next question asks, what was your favorite dive you ever went on?
My favorite dive that I've ever done was with the sea lions in Santa Barbara Island. Santa Barbara Island is a rookery, so there are thousands of sea lions on the island, and when they pop, when they have babies, the babies are very curious. And so if you go at the right time of year, you'll have hundreds of sea lions that are swimming around you and playing with you. And I'll never forget that. And I try to go back as much as I can. It's about 50 or 60 miles off the coast of Los Angeles.
Kiefer is wondering, what skills or certification would you suggest somebody has in order to go through a similar career path?
So University of Florida has a marine technology department, and so does USF. FSU is one of the best marine biology universities in the world. We're very lucky in Florida. Even FAU, pretty much every university in Florida, this can't be said almost anywhere else, has marine engineering, marine technology, and marine biology. If you go the engineering route, you'll end up doing something similar to me. If you go the biology route, you'll probably spend a lot more time in a lab or with animals, or doing research. So engineering is really where you want to focus. There's systems engineering, there's electrical engineering, there's mechanical engineering, and all of these things can be applicable to the water. Engineering is universally needed in all industries. So you may decide, I'd rather be building aircraft, I'd rather be in space than I'd rather be in the ocean. But if you start with engineering, you'll end up in a good place.
Are there any limitations to the type of photography you do? For example, in terms of the specs on a computer or a television, does that limit the types of things that we could see from what your cameras can do?
So my specialization is actually, my main specialty is actually creating video experiences which are hundreds or thousands of times greater than a TV. So most of what I create, you will never see on a TV, or maybe even in a virtual reality headset. There are displays and screens which are going up all over the world over the next couple of years in Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. And these are massive, gigantic screens. And we're creating content for these screens. So, so 4K is actually, I don't even make things that are 4K. I make things that are maybe 8K or 20K or 100K. At least that's my profession. And you can't buy a camera off of the shelf which can do those types of resolutions. So you have to build them the way that I do.
Thank you. Mike Bueno asks, have you ever gotten hurt by any of the animals?
Hurt by any of the animals? You know what? Animals are pretty nice. Sharks are nice, actually. They're just like puppies. They just have a little bit more teeth. I personally have not been hurt by animals. And I haven't been bit. I haven't been scratched. That's just, for some reason, I've just been very, very lucky. And overall, animals don't want to hurt us. They're just trying to do their own thing. And so if you don't get into their space, or if you're not holding a dead fish, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Heidi's wondering, did you have to go back to school to learn additional camera skills?
So I was never good at school for some reason. Yes, I went to University of Florida. I passed the SAT. You know, I got A's and B's, which is really important. But to me, the real learning happens outside of the classroom. It happens with Google, just researching things that I'm interested in. There's websites with white papers and academic papers. And so most of what is taught in school is available outside of school. And so I've been pretty much self-taught. I'll have coffee with someone that I'm curious about learning something. Maybe I'll just try to spend time with people who I find to be very smart and get to know a little bit more about their process. But I've never gone back to school. After I graduated from University of Florida in 2007, that was it. And that's going to be it. So I would rather spend my tuition personally on research and development of ideas and businesses rather than school. And that doesn't mean school's a bad thing. There's some things, sometimes you need to go to school, like dentistry. But for something like multi-camera underwater filming, there isn't a school that teaches that. And that's where you just got to make it up as you go.
Mark is curious, what are you using for image stitching? Are you using a custom written software or something already out there available for anyone?
We use Mystica, we use PT GUI, we use Voices, we use there's a number of image stitching software out there now to do it for us. And that wasn't true 5 years ago, but everything is pretty much commercial off the shelf at this point. And then when you actually want to make things look 100% accurate, you go into Nuke, and Nuke allows you to do what's called compositing or rotoing or painting some of the things that look bad in the video. Maybe a stitch line is there. You can fix that in Nuke. So yeah, there's nothing really special about what I do, minus the fact that we just take a lot of stuff off the shelf and make it for our purpose.
We have time for just about a few more questions. For our next one, Drew is wondering, what is the coolest thing that you filmed?
Coolest thing that I filmed, I went to Tonga 2 years ago, and Tonga is where humpback whales mate, and they give birth to their calves there. And there's a few places in the world that do that, and Tonga's just one of very few. And so I was able to swim and dive with these humpback whales and these babies, and I'll just never forget it.
That's amazing. Heidi's wondering, are the videos that you make compatible with handheld virtual reality viewers?
Yes, they are. So for example, I have an Oculus Quest headset. Maybe you see this right here. It's this white thing I'm holding in my hand. If you go to Oculus TV and you see an underwater film there, most likely that was shot by my partner and I, or the camera was created by my partner and I. So, and a lot of those are actually highlighted. There's a theme under Oculus TV called Exploring the Oceans, or The Wonder of the Oceans, I can't remember. And it's just underwater stuff. And a lot of that is ours. So if you get a headset, specifically Oculus, which has most of the content online, look around and you'll probably find stuff that we've done.
Aya asks, which underwater VR 360 camera would you suggest for someone who is unable to build their own camera? Are there ones you have designed for sale?
So there is a company called iBubble out of the UK, and they create this like fishbowl looking enclosure that goes onto the GoPro Fusion or GoPro Max or Insta360 cameras. And they're these little tiny handheld cameras, and they're good. They're fun. There's no stitching needed. You can take them out on dives. You can pack them really easily. It's only a few $100s. So for the beginner, I would certainly recommend an iBubble housing and maybe like a GoPro Max.
Caitlin is curious, how do you think 360 videos are changing the way that we tell stories?
Ooh, Caitlin. Oh man. And I know Caitlin. So she could answer this question maybe better than I could, but 360 is it's spatial and it's experiential. And so we don't necessarily tell the same stories in 360 as we would at the movie theater. If we want people to feel something and really understand something, you want to put them there. You want to bring them into a space so that they can look around. So for example, being on the space station and telling a story about the space station, doing that in 360 and doing that in 2D are two completely different experiences and two completely different ways of viewing things. And I've been in 360 looking at the space station, and I didn't realize how many computers were up there. I didn't realize, all the different pictures and things that these astronauts see from day to day. You're able to frame things with the normal camera, and everything is possible to view in 360. And yeah, I know we don't have much time. That's a conversation which we could spend many, many days on, but it's a really, really good question.
And for our final question, I'm sort of curious if you have any final thoughts for our attendees today. It could be something that you've experienced during one of your journeys or treks that you've learned from nature, or some final thoughts you'd like to leave our students in attendance with today, or really anything else. But I just want to leave the floor open to you in case there's anything final you'd like to share with the group.
Got it. Well, follow your interests, follow your passion. Do the best that you can at school. Don't screw that up. Get good grades, get good test scores. And if you're interested and curious, that's a good thing. Follow curiosity. If there's anything you want to learn, go out and do it. And the more that you learn, the more useful you will be to other people. And the more people are going to want to use you. And as you grow up, that'll turn into from a hobby to a profession, I promise. So stay curious. And if you are ever in St. Petersburg, give me a holler. That's it.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for sharing your stories. At this point, Stephanie is going to talk to us a little bit about what we have going on next, as well as what we have on our final thoughts for this evening's presentation.
Thanks, Brian. And thank you, Casey. Thanks everyone for joining us on the call. I believe Elise is going to pop in the chat box once again for us, the K-12 extension resources and the link to the survey for some swag this evening. Again, those will be popped into the chat box. Along with being on our YouTube channel, you'll find the recording of today and those resources there as well. For additional information on the Scientist in Every Florida School program or the ANGARI Foundation, you can visit our websites and follow us on social media. We hope you've enjoyed today's presentation, and we've added a survey link again for that swag, don't forget. We hope to see you next time for the Ocean Expert Exchange that is scheduled for November 5th. And